Stephen, I want to talk about race sponsorship. I know you in the past have had a relationship with Gold Eagle Company. Most of us gearheads know Gold Eagle through their product Stable. I use Stable there you go. I use Stable in all of our vehicles, and thus the name. It keeps the gasoline stable during the off season. Right now, all of my cars are what I call in hibernation, and all of them had some Stable go through the system before I put them into hibernation. But my question is this: what are the benefits for companies that want to expand their demographic and core audience to include the motorsports viewing audience? What does it bring to a company to be a sponsor, if you will?
Nothing if you do it wrong. And this is like the best question you could possibly ask.
Oh, good.
I have had companies that sponsored me, and they send you a check, and then they get to the end of the year and they look at their books and say, we didn't make any more money. What did we do that for?
Right.
Because all you did was send a check.
Yeah.
This needs to be an entire process that takes an investment of time and effort. Now, I have other companies that have sponsored me, and years later, they're still using the photo content that we came up with, the video content that we came up with, still advertising the fact that we won this race and this championship in 2004 and 2012. They're still using that same stuff, and they put it on their social media. They still talk about it. They put it up and say, this is the history of our company. We have a legacy in motorsports, and it is absolutely proven that people who love motorsports will go way out of their way to do business with companies that support motorsports. Whether that company makes an automotive product or not makes absolutely no difference. Racing fans are uber loyal, and they will bend over backwards, but they have to know. Now, if I go out and I run, let's see, we won that one. We won Midvale in the Super Cup race in 2017. You go out, you win that race, it goes on television, and it was televised. Then the television airing gets repeated 2 or 3 times, and then what happens? Nothing. It's gone.
Right.
Unless the company involved saw the chance ahead of time to put out a press release and an announcement, put it on all their social media, put it on their website, spread the word as best they can. Okay, we have signed a contract with this driver and we're going racing. Okay, there's a contact with the people who will use your product. Then you come out and you tell your racing driver that we have a message, if we make spark plugs, our message is that we burn cleaner than anybody else. Okay, that's your message. Driver, we want you to do this in all of your interviews, because he's going to be conducting some big, some small, some websites, all this kind of stuff. But if he has no message, all he can do is try to remember a name, and that's it. Right. And there are companies out there, Jerry, that don't do this. And they write a check, they put a name on the side of the car, and then they sit back and like, okay, what happened? Well, probably nothing.
Right.
Unless you use the content across all of your available platforms, and then it will reward you. And I think Stable is the perfect example.
Yeah.
In 2019 and 2020, they sent me to a couple of Grid Life events. And especially, I think in 2019, 2020, one of those days, we ran really well. Went out and finished in the top 12 or 15 out of like 70 cars at Gingerman. Then we finished in the top 3, made it on the podium for points at a huge event that they hold out at Pikes Peak International Raceway. And that year, they set all-time sales records across the board on all their Stable products. Yeah. Now, is that because of Stephen? No, probably not. It's probably because of Bob Galeska is a really good friend of mine. He's the brand manager for Stable, and the guy's just brilliant in everything he does. It's them, but in some respects, we got to be a part of that. And if Stable wasn't, if they didn't have a Bob Galeska and his marketing brain to take this content and to get it out there and to use it, then it wouldn't have been able to contribute. So the bottom line can and will be there if it is used properly. You got to remember that sponsorship is like a hammer. Okay, I bought a hammer. Well, are you building anything?
Right.
No,
Yeah.
but I got a hammer. Okay,
Right.
then it's doing you no good whatsoever. If you
Right.
take it and you start hammering something together with it, now you have a tool that will work and it will function. And I think, Bob and Elizabeth and Bobby and all the people over at Stable are living proof of that.
It's so interesting, Stephen. So much of what you just said, I lived with my previous employer with that
Oh,
ARCA team.
really?
Yeah, with the ARCA team. Well, first of all, they made the commitment to the team before I got there. And by the time I got there, it was a 3-year commitment, and we were probably well into the second season.
Mhm.
And exactly what you said prior to me getting there, and I'm not taking any credit for this, it's just the reality of it. They wrote a check. They wrote a check to this
Yeah.
team. They didn't participate. They didn't go to the track. And when I got there, I said, come on, this is a fantastic, you've paid for this. It's an enormous investment. We got to get some return on it. And I am happy to say by the time I left, it was showing a return on investment, but you're absolutely right. It's a two-way street. It's not just a matter of writing the check. To some degree, writing the check is the easy part.
Yes. Yes.
You have to work as a sponsor as hard as the team has to work to win, right?
Exactly.
And yeah.
If
So
if
interesting that you mentioned that.
if the sponsoring company does nothing but write a check and then sit back and cross their arms and expects miracles to happen, the odds of them succeeding are slim. If the company writes a check and then commits themselves to this advertising campaign, not necessarily spending more money, but commits themselves to using and building around it, the chances of failure are very, very slim. Nine
Right.
times out of 10, you're going to see a really solid ROI.
No question about it. Like I say, I can attest to that for sure. I lived it. And one thing it made me uber aware of is just how expensive racing is. Yeah, for sure, right? And not every company can afford to sponsor a team for an entire season. So Stephen, my question to you is this: with the series that you're involved in, are there opportunities for like a single race sponsorship where we're not doing an entire season, but possibly just a single event where we would have an opportunity to sponsor? Is that possible?
Yeah, it's absolutely possible. In fact, in my case, that's preferable because I'm in some cases I'm at a disadvantage, in some cases I'm at an advantage at what I can offer a sponsor. What I cannot offer a sponsor is a every race commitment all the way through the year. That's almost impossible for me to do
Right.
because of my television commitments.
Sure.
But and somebody else, there's a lot of other really good drivers out there who can offer that they're going to run for points and they're going to run the exact same car in the exact same series, sometimes at the exact same track all year long. And there are some positives to that. I can't offer those, but I like to think that there are some other advantages I can offer. Number one, absolutely yes, I can do one-off races because most of my season is one-off races. That's
Right.
kind of what I do. I'll
Right.
drive for the same team 2, 3, 4 times in a year, sometimes once in a year, and that's pretty much it. And then I have to bounce to a different series because I've got another sponsor who's interested, or another ride came up in road racing and I've been running ovals or something like that. And the second thing that I bring, I think, is a lot more exposure because I'm nobody's Brad Pitt, but 32 million people a year watch Mecum auctions.
No
And
question.
an enormous number. I don't know how many people per year will watch me on live streaming. They'll when races that are streamed, they'll see articles that are written about my racing throughout the year. So I feel like it kind of counterbalances it. And what it does is it gives a potential sponsor an opportunity to, instead of spending in the high six figures or millions, they
Yeah.
can come down to a much more manageable number and cherry pick one or two or four or five events, or sometimes just one event, and know that there will be at least some small level of notoriety that's attached to that ride if they use it.
Right. Yeah, no question. And Stephen, I've often looked at race sponsorship uh, in the point of view as a customer appreciation event. And what I mean by that is our customers at Toso Bathica, we like to do special events for them. Last year, we went to the F1 race in Montreal. We're based in Quebec, so it made perfect sense. But we like to do, and all companies, right? Most companies want to do some sort of customer appreciation event. And I think race sponsorship is beautiful for that. And I know you can speak to this because it not only gives the customer an opportunity to be at the track, which unto itself is fantastic, but it gives them rock star access. Let's be honest. They're going to meet
It
Stephen
does.
Cox. They're going to be able to get up close to the car. They're going to be in the pits if they wish. It's just an experience that you can't get anywhere else.
No, and you can't buy a ticket and go get that experience either,
Right.
but you can
You're
be
right.
immersed inside the event. And from a standpoint of return on investment and customer entertainment, what this does is it gets you away from the showroom. And most importantly, it gets your customer out of their place of business.
Yeah, no
And
question.
once they're out of there, they are mentally free. Everything comes down a notch. They know they're there to have fun. And now you can take your customer relationship to the next level and be their friend. And once you're friends with somebody, you'll do business with them forever because they're your friend. And that is what you have. And you cannot accomplish that no matter how good a salesperson is. You cannot break out of that mindset as long as they've got headsets on or they're sitting talking to a phone and they're in their office or they're on a job site. That's where their mind is, and it has to be of necessity. You've got to get them away from that and give them something fun to do. And at that point, you don't have to sell anything. Now you can just legitimately just be their friend and just have fun together for the day. And that cements long-term relationships, which results in long-term sales.
So well said. I think the racetrack is the new golf course. What do you think of that?
Can I use that?
I want
gotta
you to
remember
use that. I
that.
want you to use that.
That's really good.
I want you to use that. And just one more thing before I move on to the next question. You know, we did little die-cast models of the ARCA car. And to this day, now that's years ago, I could walk into offices of my former customers with that product, and that car's still there, baby. It's amazing. They look at that car every time they turn their computer on in the morning. You know, like you said, it lasts if you do it
Yeah.
correctly. It lasts a long, long time.
Well, put it this way. Tell me what the Gulf colors are. What are they?
The Gulf oil colors, blue, orange, and white.
How would you possibly know that?
Well,
It's been 60 years, Jerry. How could you possibly know that?
right.
And we all know that advertising doesn't really work. How could you possibly instantly, right off the top of your head, name their exact colors for Gulf oil after 60 years?
Yeah.
Well, the honest truth of the matter is, decades and decades and decades later, that's still advertising for that company.
Yeah.
You know who was on the very first car, the Marmon Wasp, in the first Indy 500, who provided tires for them?
Oh, no, I don't.
Firestone. Firestone. And if you look at their advertising still today, it's been over 110 years. And that day is still advertising for Firestone.
Yeah.
You cannot beat this. And that's
cool.
why mentioned a few ago, I've got sponsors out there. They dig up content from years past and they bring it back out and they say, here's what we accomplished in the sport that you love. That stuff makes a difference.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. I didn't realize that about Firestone. You know, as you know very, very well, I'm a Maserati owner. And
That's right. Yeah.
Right. I believe it's the 1939 and the 1940 Wilbur Shaw in the only Maserati ever to enter And doesn't he win twice in the Boyle Special, 39, all pre-war, 39 and 40?
Yep.
Yeah, and Maserati to this day, right? I mean, how many years has passed?
Yeah.
They bring up Wilbur Shaw in the Boyle Special as the Maserati powered vehicle to win 2 years in a row. Oh, it's so
Yeah.
cool.